In these next two examples, we're going to look at what happens if you're missing a term in the polynomial that you are divided by. So if we look at this example, x to the fourth minus 2x cubed plus x minus 1. We notice here that we are missing our x squared term. And when you're doing long division, you always have to make sure you have every exponent in decreasing order. So 4, 3, I don't have my 2, I have my 1, and I have my 0 exponent. So what I need to do is if I'm missing a term, you have to insert it in there with a 0 coefficient. So I'm going to have to insert a 0x squared in between the x cubed and the x variables. So let's set up our division. We're dividing by x plus 1. So I have my x plus 1 on the outside. And on the inside, I'm going to have my x to the fourth minus 2x cubed. And I'm going to insert my 0 x squared term because it's missing. And then I have my plus x minus 1. Again, the key is to organize your work. I have two terms, and so my first answer is going to go over my second term. And the whole point is to eliminate the largest amount possible. So what do you multiply x by to get x to the fourth? And that would be an x cubed. And so like I said before, you notice, your cubes are going to be above your cubes. That's the whole point, to keep it organized. You'll see that you're in the right spot. And then you distribute. X cubed times x is x to the fourth. X cubed times 1 is a positive 1x cubed. Now the whole point we said is to subtract this expression. And so the shortcut is to change all of the signs. And so I can put my minus sign here. And then plus, I'm going to change into a minus, or plus and negative. And then I just work vertically. The x to the fourth minus x to the fourth is going to cancel. Negative 2x cubed minus x cubed is going to be negative 3x cubed. And then you drop down your next term. So plus 0x squared. So what do you multiply x by to get negative 3x cubed? And that was going to be a negative 3x squared. And so distribute negative 3x squared to x is going to be negative 3x cubed. Negative 3x squared to 1 is a negative 3x squared. So the whole point is to subtract that expression. So let's change all the terms to the opposite. So the negative 3x cubed becomes a positive 3x cubed. The negative 3x squared becomes a positive 3x squared. The first term is going to cancel. And so we have 0x squared plus 3x squared, which gives me 3x squared. And then you drop down the next term, which is a positive x. So let's give myself some room. And so again, look at the first term. We want to eliminate the 3x squared. So what do you multiply x by to get 3x squared? And that's going to be a positive 3x. Distribute 3x times x is 3x squared. 3x times 1 is a positive 3x. We want to subtract these expressions, so we're going to change the operations to the opposite. So the positive 3x squared here becomes a negative, and then you're adding a negative here. The first term is always going to cancel, and then you have x minus 3x, which is going to be negative 2x. You drop down the last term, which is a negative 1. So what do you multiply x by to get negative 2x? And that's going to be a negative 2. And so I put my minus 2 here. And I distribute. Negative 2 times x is going to be negative 2x. Negative 2 times 1 is a negative 2. We're going to subtract that expression, so let's change all the terms to the opposite. So the negative 2x becomes a positive 2, and the negative 2 becomes a positive 2. The first term is going to cancel because they're opposites, and then negative 1 plus 2 is a positive 1. And so that is my remainder. And so my final answer is my x cubed minus 3x squared plus 3x minus 2. My remainder is a positive, so plus, it's 1. So I'm going to put that over what I divided by, which was x plus 1. And so that is the solution when dividing our x to the fourth minus 2x cubed plus x minus 1 by x plus 1. The key is if you're missing a term, you have to insert it in there. Let's continue our examination of how to divide polynomials when they're missing terms with this example. We have 6t cubed plus 5t squared plus 9. And if I look at this, I can see I am missing my t term. So I need to input a 0t there. And I'm going to be dividing by the binomial 2t plus 3. And so let's set it up. I have my 2t plus 3. And I'm dividing by my 6t cubed plus 5t squared. Insert your t terms, 0t, plus 9. Now let's perform long division. 2 terms, my first answer is going to go over my second term. And I'm trying to eliminate the most possible. So what do you multiply 2t by to get 6t cubed? And that is going to be a 3t squared. Distribute it. You have 3t squared times 2t, that's 6t cubed. 3t squared times 3 is going to be 9t squared. Whole point is to subtract, so let's change all these to the opposite. So the negative here plus becomes a minus here. And so 6t cubed minus 6t cubed is going to cancel. 5t squared minus 9t squared is going to be negative 4t squared. Drop down your 0t. And what do you multiply 2t by to get negative 4t squared? And that's going to be a negative 2t. Distribute negative 2t times 2t is negative 4t squared. Negative 2t times 3 is going to be a negative 6t. Whole point is to subtract this expression, so let's change all the terms to the opposite. So this becomes a plus 4t squared, and this becomes a plus 6t. So negative 4t squared plus 4t squared cancels. 0t plus 6t is 6t. And then we drop down our last term, which is a positive 9. And so what do you multiply 2t by to get your 6t? And I would multiply 2t by a positive 3. And so I have a positive 3 here. Distribute. 3 times 2t is 6t. And 3 times 3 is 9. And so let's subtract these terms. So I change this to the opposite operation and plus and negative here. 6t minus 6t is going to cancel. And 9 minus 9 is 0. And so my remainder is 0, which is a good thing because I don't have to keep it in consideration. And my final answer, and so my final answer is 3t squared minus 2t plus 3. And so the main idea is if you're missing a term, and you can see you're missing a term if your exponents are decreasing and you see a gap. I was missing a t here, so I have to insert it. And that's the key for missing pieces of information with long division, is you need to make sure you include that term that is missing.